fired for an act of kindness, abandoned by her boss, and struggling to make ends meet. What happened next was something no one saw coming. The door swings open, letting in a blast of humid air as a man steps inside, wiping the sweat from his brow. Derek Lawson, still in his dusty work boots and faded jeans, scans the near-empty diner before settling into a stool at the counter. His shirt is stained with sawdust and sweat, a clear sign of a long day under the sun. Behind the counter, Emily RHSA, 29-year-old waitress with tired eyes but a warm smile, glances up from refilling a sugar dispenser. She's seen her fair share of exhausted workers dragging themselves in for a bite, but something about Derek makes her pause. Maybe it's the way he rolls his shoulders, like the weight of the world is pressing down on them. "You look like you could use a cold drink," she says, setting a glass of iced tea in front of him before he even asks. Derek exhales, nodding as he grips the glass. "You have no idea," she chuckles, grabbing an order pad. "What can I get you?" He flips through the menu, rubbing his chin. "Let me do the special, the one with the fried catfish and cornbread." She finishes for him. "That's the one." Emily jots it down, then heads to the kitchen. The diner is quiet, too quiet. The only other customer is a man in the corner, nursing a cup of coffee, flipping through a newspaper like it holds the secrets of the universe. Frank Delaney, the owner, sits behind the register, pretending to sort receipts. He doesn't bother hiding the way he glances toward Derek every few seconds, lips pressed in a thin line. Emily ignores it. She knows Frank's type, the kind of man who thinks kindness should come with conditions. She slides the plate in front of Derek. When it's ready, fresh from the fryer, Derek grins, shaking his head. "I owe you one." But just as he reaches for his pocket, his expression shifts. He pats his jeans, checks the front of his shirt. "Damn," he mutters under his breath. "I think I left my wallet at the site." He looks up at Emily, face tight with embarrassment. "I can run back," and Emily waved a hand before he can finish. "Don't worry about it." Derek hesitates. "You sure positive?" She says. "You work hard." "This one's on me." He studies her for a second, like he's trying to figure out if she's serious. Then his shoulders loosen just a little. "Thank you," he says, voice low but sincere. She just shrugs. "Come back tomorrow and leave a big tip." They share a small laugh before Derek finishes his meal. As he walks to the door, he turns back, giving her a nod of appreciation. But just as the bell jingles above the door, Frank speaks up. "What the hell was that?" Emily stiffens, slowly turning toward him. "What?" Frank steps closer, dropping a pile of receipts onto the counter. "You just gave that guy a free meal. He left his wallet." Emily explains, already knowing it won't matter. Frank scoffs. "That's not our problem." Emily tightens her grip on the towel in her hands. "It's $8, Frank." "I don't care if it's 8 cents, he snaps. "You think you can just start handing out free food? We ain't a charity." Emily's jaw clenches. She's been working here for nearly 5 years, and she's seen plenty of customers leave without paying, but those customers look different than Derek. "You let Ricky Sanders run a tab last week," she points out. "That's different." How? Frank doesn't answer right away. He just glares. Emily swallows, choosing her words carefully. "It's not about the food, is it?" Frank leans in, lowering his voice. "You want to keep your job, Emily?" She stares at him, realizing exactly where this is going. She's known Frank was small-minded for a while, but she never thought he'd go this far. Still, she lifts her chin. "If keeping my job means treating people unfairly, maybe I don't want it." Frank's face darkens. "Then don't bother coming in tomorrow." The words hit like a slap. For a second, Emily thinks maybe she misheard him, but the look in his eyes tells her she didn't. She grips the counter, trying to keep her voice steady. "You're firing me over an $8 meal?" "No." Frank shakes his head, voice cold. "I'm firing you for insubordination." Emily blinks, heart pounding. "Clock out," he says, turning away. "You're done here." The air feels heavier. All of a sudden, the coffee pot gurgles in the silence. Emily stands there, swallowing hard. Then, without another word, she unties her apron, folds it neatly, and sets it on the counter. As she heads for the door, her fingers tremble, but she doesn't look back. But as she steps outside into the evening air, reality starts to sink in. She just lost her job over a simple act of kindness, and now she has no idea what comes next. Emily's shoes scrape against The pavement as she walks away from the diner, her mind racing. She spent the last 5 years working double shifts, handling rude customers, scraping by on tips, and now it's all gone just like that. She grips her phone in her pocket. She should call someone, but who? Her best friend Monica is probably still at work. Her parents know. She can already hear the disappointment in her mother's voice. Emily, you should have kept your mouth shut. Her throat tightens. She crosses the street without thinking, barely noticing the cars whizzing by her feet carry her somewhere, anywhere just away from that diner. After a few blocks, she stops in front of a gas station, the neon sign flickering overhead. She pushes inside, the air conditioning blasting against her skin. She pretends to browse the aisles, running her fingers along the cheap bags of chips, the overpriced candy bars, but really she's just stalling. Finally, she pulls out her phone and checks her bank account. 324 sous, 56 tons. That's it, that's all she has. Her stomach knots. Rent is due in 2 weeks. A voice cuts through her thoughts. You okay? She looks up. The cashier, a kid who can't be older than 20, is watching her from behind the counter. Emily forces a smile, yet just thinking. The kid nods, but doesn't push. She grabs a bottle of water, pays, and heads back outside. The reality is hitting her now. She has no job, no backup plan, and no clue what she's supposed to do next. Back at her apartment, silence fills the space. She sets her keys on the counter, then stands there staring at the blank wall. This place isn't much. A tiny one bedroom with a leaking faucet and a fridge that hums too loud, but it's hers. She can't lose it. She drops onto the couch, pressing the heels of her hands against her eyes. What now? She could start applying for new jobs in the morning, but she knows how that goes. Waiting tables doesn't pay much, but at least it was something most places won't even be hiring. Her chest tightens. This isn't fair. She did the right thing. She helped someone, but instead of feeling proud, all she feels is stupid. Meanwhile, word starts to spread. By the next morning, half the town has heard about what happened. Some say she got what she deserved. Others say Frank Delaney finally showed his true colors. It starts as whispers, then turns into something bigger. People talk, and in a town like this, people don't forget. Emily wakes up to a text from Monica. Monica, girl, what the hell happened? Call me ASAP. Emily sighs, staring at the message. She doesn't want to rehash it, but then there's another text from a number she doesn't recognize. Unknown. Hey, it's Derek. Hope you're doing okay. Can I stop by? She stares at the screen. Derek. She barely knows him, but somehow he's the only person who seems to care. She hesitates, then types back, Emily, yeah, sure. An hour later, there's a knock at her door. She hesitates before opening it. Derek stands there, hands in his pockets, looking genuinely concerned. I heard what happened, he says. I'm real sorry. Emily forces a small shrug. Guess that's what I get for helping someone. Derek's jaw tightens. That ain't how it should be. She lets out a bitter laugh. Tell that to Frank. For a second, neither of them speak. Then Derek shifts his weight like he's debating something. Finally, he clears his throat. Look, I didn't just come by to check on you. Emily raises an eyebrow. Oh, he exhales, rubbing the back of his neck. I own a contracting company. We've been growing fast, and I need someone to help keep things organized. Scheduling, paperwork, client calls, stuff I don't have time to handle. Emily blinks. Wait, you own the company? He smirks. What, you thought I was just some guy with a toolbox? She chuckles. I mean, Kinder. Derek laughs, shaking his head. Nah. Been running my own crew for 6 years now. Then his expression turns serious. I don't know if it's what you're looking for, but if you need work, the offers there. Emily stares at him. Yesterday she was fired for helping him, and now he's offering her a job. She wants to say yes, God, she wants to, but something stops her. This is a lot, she admits. I mean, I've only ever worked in restaurants. I don't know the first thing about construction. Derek shrugs. You're smart, you'll figure it out. Emily exhales, rubbing her forehead. Can I think about it? Of course, he says without hesitation. Take your time. He reaches into his pocket, pulling out a business card. When you're ready, he says, handing it to her. Then, without pressuring her any further, he steps back. Take care, Emily. And just like that, he's gone. She stares at the card in her hands. Derek Lawson owner Lawson Contracting and Renovations. She traces her thumb over the embossed lettering, her heart pounding. This could be her way out. A fresh start, a new beginning, but taking it that would mean stepping into a world she knows nothing about. She swallows hard. She has a choice to make, but deep down she knows this isn't just about a job anymore. It's about proving that what she did was right and making sure Frank Delaney doesn't get the last word. Emily sits at her kitchen table staring at Derek's business card. It feels heavier than it should, like it carries the weight of a decision she's not ready to make. She flips it over, then back again. Her fingers trace the edges, her mind spinning. A construction company. Seriously, she spent her whole life in diners balancing trays and dodging sleazy customers. What does she know about schedules, payroll, or handling contracts? But then she thinks about Frank, his smug face when he fired her, the way he dismissed her like she was nothing, and suddenly the idea of taking this job doesn't just feel like an opportunity, it feels like revenge. The next morning she's out of excuses. She punches Derek's number into her phone and takes a breath. It rings once, twice. Then Emily. Derek's voice comes through steady and warm. Good to hear from you. She hesitates, gripping the phone tighter. Is the offer still on the table? There's a short pause, then come by the site at noon. We'll talk. When she arrives, she immediately feels out of place. The construction site is nothing like the diner. Workers in hard hats move in every direction. Trucks rumble over gravel. The air smells like sawdust and fresh paint. Derek waves her over. He's in his element here, confident in control. Emily, on the other hand, feels like an intruder. Didn't think you'd actually show, he says, smiling. She shrugs. Didn't think I would either. He leads her toward a makeshift office trailer, small but functional. Inside, blueprints are spread across the desk. A whiteboard lists client projects and deadlines. Derek leans against the desk. All right, be honest with me. How much do you know about running a business? Emily laughs dry. Unless you account handling drunk customers and balancing plates on my arm. Nothing. Derek nods, like that's exactly what he expected. Good, no bad habits to unlearn. She raises an eyebrow. You're really not worried about hiring someone who has zero experience? He shrugs. I built this company from nothing, learned as I went. You can too. Emily lets out a breath. She doesn't if it's confidence or pure recklessness, but either way she's in. What do you need me to do? Derek grins. First lesson, never ask that question. She frowns. Why? Because I'll give you an answer, he says, tossing her a notepad. And it won't be easy. Her first week is hell. She's drowning in paperwork, invoices, and phone calls. She doesn't know the difference between a subcontractor and a supplier. She keeps forgetting names. She's terrified she'll mess up, but Derek is patient. He doesn't treat her like she's stupid. He shows her how to manage schedules, how to handle clients without getting walked over, and slowly she starts getting the hang of it. One evening she stays late at the office trailer, flipping through old invoices. A voice interrupts her thoughts. Still here? She looks up. Derek leans against the doorway, arms crossed. Didn't think you were the type to put in overtime, he teases. She smirks. Didn't think you were the type to let an employee mess up your filing system. Derek chuckles, stepping inside. He watches her for a moment, then softer. You're doing good. You no. Emily pauses. She doesn't know why, but hearing that means more than she expected. Thanks, she muttered. Derek nods, then tilts his head. You hungry? She blinks. Oh, what? There's a spot down the road. Best barbecue you'll ever have. She hesitates. It's just dinner, nothing more. Still, she's never had a boss offer to buy her ribs before. She grabs her jacket. All right, but if it sucks, I'm quitting. Derek laughs. Deal. Meanwhile, back in town, Frank Delaney is starting to feel the heat. A few customers have stopped coming to the diner. Word has gotten around about why Emily was fired. Some don't care, but some do, and that's a problem. One afternoon, he finds himself in the grocery store picking up supplies. As he waits in line, two women whisper behind him. She gave a man one free meal and he fired her. I heard. He barely gave her a chance to explain. Frank clenches his teeth, tossing his groceries onto the conveyor belt. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like the way people are looking at him now. Emily doesn't know it yet, but she's Become a symbol people are talking, people are choosing sides, and sooner or later Frank is going to have to face the consequences, but right now Emily is too busy proving something to herself that she's stronger than Frank ever gave her credit for. Emily leans against the counter of the barbecue joint, the scent of smoked ribs and sizzling brisket thick in the air. She watches Derek from the corner of her eye as he greets the owner like an old friend. The man claps Derek on the back, tossing him a free side of cornbread. People respect him here. It's a strange contrast to what she's used to at the diner. Frank ran things with an iron fist. Customers tolerated him, but no one liked him. Derek, he earns his respect, and Emily's starting to see why they sit at a booth near the window, their plates stacked high. Derek tears into his ribs without hesitation. Told you this place was good. Emily rolls her eyes. I haven't even taken a bite yet. She picks up a fork, but before she can dig in, her phone vibrates. A text from Monica. Monica, girl, you are not going to believe this. Frank is losing his damn mind. Emily frowns. She shoots back, Emily, why? A few seconds later, Monica, people are boycotting the diner. Business is dead. Emily stares at the screen. Derek raises an eyebrow. Everything all right? She hesitates before flipping her phone around to show him. He reads the message, then leans back, shaking his head. K is quick sometimes. Emily lets out a breath. She doesn't feel bad for Frank, not one bit, but still she didn't expect this. People are actually standing up for her. She presses her lips together, a strange mix of satisfaction and disbelief washing over her. Derek wipes his hands on a napkin, watching her. What are you thinking? She exhales. I don't know, just I never thought people would care. Derek studies her for a moment. That's the thing about doing the right thing, he says. Sometimes people don't notice, but when they do, it sticks. She lets that sink in as she finally takes a bite of her food. Damn, he was right about the ribs. Meanwhile, across town, Frank Delaney is fuming. The diner is a ghost town. The usual breakfast rush gone. The lunch crowd nowhere to be seen. Even his regulars, the old-timers who practically lived at the counter, aren't showing up. He slams a rag onto the counter, glaring at the empty booths. This is ridiculous, he mutters, but deep down he knows exactly why it's happening. People don't like bullies, and right now that's what he looks like. The bell above the door jingles, and for the first time today someone walks in. Frank's stomach unclenches. Finally a customer, but then he sees who it is. Derek Lawson. Frank stiffens. Derek walks in like he owns the place. Calm and unbothered, he stops at the counter, resting his hands on the surface. Frank folds his arms. You lost? Derek smirks. Nope, just thought I'd check and see how business is going. Frank jaw TNs. I don't know what you think you're doing, but if you're here to start something. Derek raises a hand. Relax, Frank, I'm just here to talk. Frank glares at him, but he doesn't tell him to leave. Derek leans in slightly. You made a mistake. Frank scoffs. I don't need a damn lecture from you. Derek shrugs. Maybe not, but look around. Frank doesn't want to, but he does. Empty tables, stacked chairs, a register that hasn't been opened all day. Derek shakes his head. This town isn't as small-minded as you thought. Huh? Frank's lip twitches. What do you want? Derek sighed, rubbing his chin, then in a tone so casual it feels like a punch to the gut, he says, I want to buy this place. Frank almost chokes. What you heard me? Derek says, I'll pay cash, more than it's worth too. Frank laughs, but there's no humor in it. Why the hell would I sell my diner to you? Derek doesn't flinch. Because you're bleeding money, and we both know it. Frank stares at him, his fingers twitch on the counter. He hates this. He hates that. Derek is right. He hates that he's the one in the weak position now, but most of all he hates the fact that he's actually considering it. Derek leans back, giving him space to think. Sleep on it, he says, but don't wait too long, because once this place sinks for good. He smirks. You won't get a second chance. Then, without another word, he walks out. Frank stands there, fists clenched, watching him go. For the first time in his life, he doesn't know what to do next. That night, Emily is exhausted but wired. She sits on her couch, feet propped up on the table, still processing everything. She's finally starting to feel like she belongs at Derek's company, and now Frank's empire is crumbling. She doesn't know if Derek will actually buy the diner, but she does know one thing: the power dynamic in this town has shifted for the first time in a long time. She's on the winning side, but just as she starts to relax, her phone buzzes with an unknown number. She hesitates, then picks up a low voice. Comes through the speaker: Emily, RHS. She sits up straighter. Who's asking? A pause. Then I represent Frank Delaney, and we need to talk because Frank isn't done yet, and this fight, it's far from over. Emily grips her phone tighter. Frank, lawyer. She repeats. The voice on the other end is smooth. Practice. That's correct. My client would like to meet. She almost laughs. Frank Delaney wants to meet after everything. Tell him I'm not interested, she says, moving to hang up, but the voice stops her. I think you'll want to hear what he has to say. Emily hesitates against her better judgment. Curiosity wins, where the next afternoon she finds herself outside a small law office. She tells herself she doesn't owe Frank anything, that she's only here to see what kind of pathetic excuse he'll throw her away. But when she steps inside, Frank isn't the same man she remembers. Gone is the smug arrogance. He looks tired. His shoulders are stiff, his mouth set in a thin line. Emily folds her arms. You wanted to talk. Frank exhales, glancing at his lawyer. Then I want you to take the diner. Emily blinks. I'm sorry. What? Frank leans forward, rubbing a hand down his face. I'm selling it, and I'd rather sell it to you than him. It takes a second for his words to sink in her. He'd rather sell it to her than Derek. Emily lets out a dry laugh. Why? Because you'd rather see me fail than let him win. Frank doesn't deny it. His lawyer clears his throat. Mr. Delaney is willing to transfer ownership at a price significantly below market value. Consider it a settlement. Emily's eyes narrow. Settlement. Frank exhales. If I give it to you, people stop talking, I walk away clean. There it is. This isn't generosity, it's survival. Emily shakes her head, pushing away from the table. Not interested. Emily, she stops. Frank leans forward. You don't have to take my deal, but if you don't, Derek will, and he'll change everything about that place. Emily stares at him. And maybe that's what you want. Frank continues, but if you take it, you decide what happens next. A choice, Derek's way or her own. She exhales slowly. Give me a day to think about it. Frank nods, because they both know she's already made up her mind that night. Emily sits across from Derek, watching his reaction. You're actually considering it? He asks, eyebrows raised. She nods. I don't know why, but yeah. Derek leans back. I offered to buy that place because I wanted to make a point, not because I actually care about flipping burgers. Emily smirks. That's the difference between us, I guess. Derek studies her for a moment. You think you can turn it around? I don't know, she admits, but I know I won't run it like him. Derek nods slowly. Then do it. Emily tilts her head. You're not mad? He chuckles. Emily, I didn't come after that diner because I needed it. I came after it because Frank needed to lose, and guess what? He spreads his hands. He lost. Emily exhales, feeling something strange settle in her chest, a sense of control for the first time in weeks. She's the one making the decision. She pulls out her phone and dials Frank. You've got a deal, but what she doesn't know is taking over the diner is just the beginning, because the moment she signs those papers, the real fight begins. The ink dries on the contract. It's official. Emily, RHS, now owns the diner. She grips the pen a little tighter as reality sets, and she should feel victorious. After all, she beat Frank at his own game. She took what he never thought she could have, but deep down there's a nagging truth she can't ignore. Winning the fight was the easy part. Now she actually has to run the place. Her first day as the owner is a disaster. The staff is skeptical. They know who she is, but they don't see her as their boss yet. Some of them are loyal to Frank, others aren't sure if she can handle it. The kitchen is a mess, the book's worse, and the customers, half of them stopped coming when Frank left. The other half, they just want to see how bad she fails. By lunch, Emily is sweating. She hasn't even taken a break, but she already feels like she's drowning. At one point, a waitress quits on the spot, says she's not interested in working for an amateur. Emily watches her walk out the door, not forming in her stomach. She wants to scream. She wants to walk out too, but then the front door swings open and Derek steps inside. He surveys the Diner then looks at her. He doesn't say anything at first, just watches, and somehow that makes it worse. Emily rubs her forehead, exhaling sharply. Go ahead, say it. Derek tilts his head. Say what I told you so, she mutters, but instead of teasing her, Derek just pulls out a chair and sits down. Then casually, what's the plan? Emily stares at him. Plan? He nods. Yeah, how are you going to fix it? She wants to snap back that she doesn't know that she's in over her head. That maybe Frank was right about her all along, but something about Derek's tone makes her stop. He's not doubting her. He's challenging her, and Emily doesn't back down from a challenge. By the end of the week, she starts making changes. She fires the staff members who don't want to be there. She hires new cooks, ones who actually care about good food. She rewrites the menu, simpler, fresher ingredients. She repaints the walls, rips down Frank's old rules, and puts up a sign that says everyone is welcome here. And slowly things start to shift. The regulars return. People talk about the diner again, but this time in a good way. The cash register rings more than it ever did under Frank. Emily works harder than she ever has before, but for the first time in her life, she's working for herself. One evening, as she's locking up, Derek leans against the doorway, watching her with a smirk. You did it, he says. Emily doesn't argue. She just looks around the diner, the place she once thought she'd leave behind forever. She lets out a breath. Yeah, I did. Then she grins, and guess what? Derek raises an eyebrow as she tosses him a dish towel. You're helping with the dishes. He laughs, shaking his head. Unbelievable, but he doesn't argue, and as they clean up together, Emily realizes something. She didn't just prove Frank wrong, she proved us right. Sometimes the worst moments in life lead to the best opportunities. Emily lost her job, but in the end she found her purpose, and maybe, just maybe, that was the real victory all along. If you've ever faced an unfair situation, remember this: you don't have to let someone else write your story. Stand up, take control, and rewrite the ending yourself, because sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to start over.